Hey, welcome back to the Broker's Voice. I'm excited. I've had her on before, and she is back on for part two. Welcome to the Broker's Voice, Nancy Giacolone.
Thank you for having me.
Now, we are recording this on Monday, April 12th. That
10th.
happens, or 10th. It happens to be a special day in your life. Let's talk about that for a second. It's somebody's birthday.
That would be mine.
So I'm going to ask you out of the gate. This has nothing to do with business. What's the best birthday present you ever got?
I think the best birthday present I ever got was last year when my husband absolutely surprised me with a very special surprise birthday party. He rented out a whole restaurant and family and friends were there. And I'm not easily surprised. And it was just amazing.
So I'm hearing you are more of an experienced person than a gift person.
I really am.
Perfect. So am I. I like that. I feel so bad, Nancy, because once in a while we'll have like industry partners mail me something, and I'm just such a bad gift person, and I feel terrible because I'm like, what am I going to do with this?
Yeah.
No, I totally get that. Well, happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
By the time this airs, your birthday will have been passed, but we are recording it on your birthday, so we'll have some fun today. Well, here's why I wanted you back on. You gave a talk at You Powered Symposium called "So You Want to Start an Agency." And it's a topic that I think is very top of mind. I know I've talked to agencies all the time who are kind of looking to revamp the way they do business because a lot has changed in the last 3 years. And we have a lot of advisors that are starting to go off on their own, and they just need a good foundation from which to start an agency. And so what we're going to do today is just walk through. You have a kind of a course or a set of pillars you teach, which I think are really powerful. And we're just going to go through each one. So if you're listening in, and you're an agency who knows it could revamp its operations a little bit, or again, you've had that thought to go out on your own, this is going to be a perfect episode. But before we get into the pillars, give us a little feedback on your agency. We'll call this the credibility. You've been around for a while running a very successful agency. For the folks who don't know you, tell us a little bit about Olympic Crest.
Sure. So Olympic Crest Insurance was founded by me 28 years ago. As a matter of fact, last week. So April 5th is my anniversary date of when I started my agency. And the reason that I started it was because I was in another agency that I was a partner in, and they were going in a direction that didn't fit. And so I had a really compelling reason for deciding to go out on my own. For 28 years, I have remained independent and have run it as a boutique employee benefits agency, and I'm very proud of that accomplishment.
That's awesome. So folks listening, you're not getting somebody who started an agency 3 or 4 years ago. She's been around. She's been doing it for a long time, and she's still doing it. So, well, Nancy, let's just talk about this. Okay. So when you gave that talk, you had a core of 10 pillars that you wanted the audience in that room really to take away if they want to run an agency that's going to be successful today. And so what we're going to do is just go through each of the 10 pillars. And I want you to give us why it's a pillar. And as if I'm a listener, how is this pillar going to benefit me? So let's just kick it off with pillar number 1. Know your why. So if I'm starting an agency or revamping mine, why does it have to start with knowing my why?
Well, I think that that's kind of a catchy term in business, knowing your why. But it's incredibly important because a lot of people do it because they think they're going to make more money. They think it's going to give them the lifestyle that they've dreamt about. They're going to be rolling in money and taking vacations and doing everything they want. Now, and that's not to say that can't happen at some point, but it has to be about more than that. You have to know why it's important to you and what is your driving factor, because it's not going to be an easy path.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think that because we are in an industry where, let's face it, financial success has been put on a pedestal, I think you're right. I think a lot of people say, hey, I'm going to go off and do this myself, partly out of ego. They want to be their own boss, but it's more, they think it's because they want to stop sharing commission.
Very true.
And they think they can go do this themselves. But it's not just about selling insurance. That's why I wanted to talk about this today. I've seen a lot of agency owners who have been around for a long time. They know how to sell insurance. Do they know how to run an agency? That's a different conversation. And so that's why we're doing this today. So let's go to pillar number 2. Pillar number 1's more mental, philosophical. Pillar number 2 is a little more tactical. Pick a name and make it meaningful. Talk about that.
I think this is one of the things that people overlook in their business process. They choose their own name And I have said that men are more likely to choose their own name than women are. It's an ego thing for a lot of people, but I think your name says a lot about what you want to do, what you want to accomplish, how you see yourself. And so I really encourage people to spend some time on this. Who's your target market? Who's your ideal client? Is your name going to speak to them, or is it going to mean anything at all? So I think it is a very big step, and it's often just glossed right over. Oh, I'm just going to go with this name and it'll be fine. Sure, it's fine, but it's an important step in setting the foundation of who you want to be.
Well, that's a good point too, especially if you want to perpetuate that business and you've named it after yourself. Not so easy to do. So I'm going to put you on the spot. How did Olympic Crest Insurance come about?
So I knew for one thing, I didn't want to name it after myself. After all, people have a hard enough time with Giacolone as it is. I was not going to attach that to a business. And I thought about it carefully. And what I wanted to do was I wanted it to represent where I was geographically. And that was important to me. And I also wanted it to seem, I didn't want it to indicate the size that I was, because when I first went out on my own, it was just me. And so I wanted the name to be something bigger than just me. And the Olympic Mountains are in the background. They're gorgeous, playing around with a little bit. That's the name we came up with.
Yep. And Crest obviously has a lot to do with a mountaintop and things like that. So it makes a lot. So in your case, very geographically applicable, which I like. And by the way, Olympic Crest Insurance saying OCI, and I don't know if any of your clients recognize you as that. It's easy to roll off the tongue. Oh, we work with OCI.
It is. And we use it interchangeably all the time.
Yeah. Well, pillar number 3 it'll be an interesting one, which is when you're starting your own agency. This is more for the folks who are probably going to go out on their own. Starting from scratch, or are you transitioning your book to start your agency? Why is that important?
Well, because it's really going to determine what your starting point is. If you're starting from scratch, you're starting with zero income. If you are transitioning a book, you have other considerations that need to be taken into concern. For an example, do you have a non-compete? Are you able to purchase account to clients? Are you able to purchase them all? What are the concerns around that? Because you really need to have a clear picture of what your starting point is. And again, these are things that people tend to rush through. Oh, I know where I'm starting. This name is going to be good enough. But the more time you spend on these fundamentals, even if it's just a couple hours, making sure that you're very clear, it's going to set you up for success down the road.
Perfect. No, I think so. What would be your advice then if, because non-competes in our industry can be pretty tight. I was just talking to a gentleman who left his agency a few weeks ago, and they basically have made it impossible for him to do any insurance business in that market whatsoever, which I think is BS. I just think people who create non-competes where it literally kills that person's ability to do any kind of business in the industry in that market is just, it's a bad way to go. But knowing non-competes are there and they're a real thing, and somebody has to start from scratch, what would be your advice to that person who's saying, Nancy, I'm starting from zero because I just can't take any clients with me?
2 comments on that. First of all, with regard to the non-compete, really the only thing that's legal is a non-solicitation. They really can't prevent you from being able to do your thing that you do for a living. So I would recommend that anybody that's in that situation, go consult with an attorney, because non-competes are hard to enforce these days. Non-solicitation is another situation. But if you're going to start from scratch, really you need to be thinking about, who's my target client? Who's my ideal client? Where am I going to spend my energy? Because you want it to be a narrow focus to begin with. It's not just anybody that buys insurance, because then you don't have a game plan. You don't have a strategy. So really honing in on, what does that person look like? What do they believe? What kind of industry are they in? Where are they geographically? Those things are incredibly important.
So I'm going to laugh for a second. And I just realized it says bullpen sessions on the top. We're going to change that to broker's voice. There we go.
Okay. We like it.
We're all human. No, that's so important, because what you just said, it would be so easy when you're starting an agency that you're going to go try to make revenue at all costs, right? Because I got to make money. So I'm going to try to go talk to anybody, and everybody's a fit. When the reality is the right answer is actually first figure out who's the best fit for you and build your marketing plan around that. If you try to go with the attitude of all revenue is good revenue, it's a bad way to start your agency.
The other thing is you need to look at your own personal situation. How much money do I have to live on? And how long can I do this? So they're not exclusive. You really need to look at it as a whole. How long can I sustain this before I write an account? And how much revenue do I need to generate to make this a success? And how long is my runway?
Which I think segues really well into your fourth pillar, which is structures, systems, and partners. So now we're going to get very strategic here. Structures, systems, and partners. What should I be looking at or looking for as I build this agency?
Well, if you've come from another agency, you were just used to having all of that stuff provided for you. You probably didn't think about it a lot, but there's some really key pieces. You're going to need an agency management system or a client relationship manager, one of the two. Sometimes they can be one and the same, but they're really important things to look at. If you're going to be in the benefits industry, you're probably going to need to look at some sort of eligibility management system. How are you going to handle your phones? Are you going to have a cell phone? Or are you going to have a different number? How is that going to be managed? Do you want your clients calling you at 11 o'clock at night? What's your accounting system look like? How are you going to manage compliance? How are you going to stay up to date on all of those things? Are you going to be providing benefit books or collateral to your clients? And how are you going to manage it? There is a lot more to it than saying, hey, I'm going to go sell an insurance plan to a group of 20. You've done that, but what's next?
Well, and I think you bring up a good point in the fact I think most probably would go out and sell first and worry about the back end last. And that's why the business they're writing is going right out the back door. It's set up the operations first. And what you're really saying is have a process, whether it's marketing, sales, or operations or client management, have a process. Is there one step of that process you would say start with first over the others, or does it not matter?
I think the thing that you need to establish right off the bat is some sort of agency management system. You need to be able to track your clients. You need to be able to build processes to effectively manage those clients, and an agency management system will give you the ability to do that.
Perfect.
Can you do it on an Excel spreadsheet? Sure. Is it going to get you very far? Probably not.
Perfect. Pillar 5, I like this one because I think people might get confused. Buy the right and enough insurance coverage. So buy the right amount and buy the right insurance coverage. No, not sell insurance. We're talking about you buying your own insurance. Talk to us about that.
Okay. So if you are a business owner in the benefits industry, the first thing you're going to need is a business owner's policy, called a BOP in property and casualty.
I used to sell BOPs back in the day.
Yes. And that covers your equipment. It covers your liability when somebody's on your premises, but that's not enough. You're also going to need errors and omissions insurance. Most insurance companies will require that you provide proof of it in order to sell their products. But these days, you also need cyber liability coverage, because we handle a lot of sensitive data, and most of us do it through electronic means. So you do not want to be caught shorthanded on that. And then the last thing I'm going to mention is when you are large enough to hire your first employee, you better be providing them benefits. And saying that they get it through their spouse, that's not good enough. Find a way to provide benefits, because if that's the industry you're in, you better be doing it too.
Hands down. I agree with that. So we've gotten through the first 5 pillars. Know your why, pick a name and make it meaningful. Start from scratch. Are you starting from scratch or transitioning your book? What structures, systems, and partners are you aligning with and leveraging? And buy the right amount and the right type of insurance coverage. So now let's get to pillar 6. And this is the one nobody wants to hear, Nancy. Pay yourself last. Nancy, I went out and started my own agency so I could make more money. What do you mean pay yourself last?
Nobody likes this one at all. And I mean, you'll see things on social media that says, oh, pay yourself first. I completely disagree with that, because you have now made commitments. You've made commitments to vendors. You've possibly rented space. You've possibly hired an employee. Those things are your first priority. You pay all of your bills first, and whatever's left over, you need to determine how much of that you're going to take. You better leave some in your operating account, because what if you lose a client next month? You still have to pay those bills. Paying yourself last is the hardest part about being a new business owner, is trying to figure out how to balance out that cash flow and understand that you need to honor your commitments first.
Yeah, I don't know if I've got here it is right here. Perfect. Before I went out on my own, I read this book, Profit First. And I got so excited, right? Because Mike Michalowicz talks about how to pay yourself first as a business owner. And what's interesting is what I love about his book is he does teach you how to divvy up all your money for taxes and operation and payroll. And I'll tell you, I use a lot of it. I don't pay myself first, but it is a good strategy. And you're right. I mean, as a business owner, paying yourself first is hard to do, especially when you're starting out the business. Mm-hmm. And I see a lot of agencies that brag about, it's funny, they tout what their profit margin is. And then I look at what they're actually giving their clients, and I'm like, well, no wonder your profit margin's so high. You're not giving your clients anything. Mm-hmm. And so you're right. You're gonna, this is the one that nobody wants to hear, but it is just a flat out truth. You're getting paid last, my friend. Take care of your commitments first.
And there may be months where you don't get paid at all.
100%.
And you need to be prepared for that.
Yep. All right. Which leads us to, so that's a realistic, there's a real statement about entrepreneurship right there, which leads right into pillar number 7, which is be realistic and be ready to pivot. So you're telling me I'm not going to start an agency and sell $1 million in the first 2 or 3 years? Like, that's not given?
That is not a given. I also like to rephrase this one sometimes and say, your first year is not your new normal. It's just not. The things that are going to happen in the first couple of years are going to happen really fast, or they're going to happen really slow. And you're probably not going to be prepared for either one of them. So you need to be realistic about your market, about your abilities, about your tool set that you have available to you. And you need to plan around that. And then you need to be prepared for the unexpected. Because early on in my career, I don't know, I maybe had my agency 7 or 8 years. I lost my 2 largest accounts through absolutely no fault of my own, but they were large accounts, probably 50% of my overall revenue. Both went within a period of about 2 months. I learned an important lesson from that. And I learned not to weight my agency too heavily based on a certain number of accounts. And I've always kept that with me as a result of that, making sure that my book is balanced. Again, some people might disagree with that approach, but the first time you lose the large account, you might rethink it.
Well, and I see this a lot with newer agencies where, they've got a $250,000, $300,000 book, but 100,000 of it's one account. Right. And like you said, you lose that one account. It is not a dent. It is a gaping hole in your business. And so I like to tell people, when you build a business, don't forget the singles and doubles. You don't need home runs out of the gate. Singles and doubles are good to have in case you lose the home run account.
Yeah.
So it's going to happen to everybody in their career at one point or another. So that's very, very sage advice. All right. We're getting to the final home stretch here. Module 8. Align yourself with a coach or mentor. I think there's the old phrase, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I think a lot of advisors are out on their own without the mentorship, and they're trying to figure it out on themselves, and they're just struggling. Why do I need a coach or a mentor, though? I don't want to pay for that, Nancy.
I think that's a great question. And I think people don't want to pay for it because, again, they're afraid in the beginning. I have this X number of dollars, and how do I allocate it? I will tell you that I think one of the single greatest investments you can make is in a coach that works with you. Everybody's different. Everybody's going to find different personality types, different styles that work with them. Experiment if you need to, but you need somebody that is going to help guide you and hold you accountable at the same time. I will tell you, I've never experienced as much growth personally and professionally as when I have been in a coaching program. Now, with that being said, maybe you really legitimately cannot afford a dime. Find an accountability partner. Find a friend in the industry that was willing to meet with you for 20 minutes every 2 weeks and, make goals and be accountable to them. So there's other ways around it. But again, going back to the pricing issue of a mentor or a coach, is that a lot of times people, they cringe. They're like, oh my gosh, I can't spend $2,500 or $5,000. But how much are you going to make off of a group of 50? More than that. So that investment is going to have long-term gains. So don't be afraid of investing in yourself.
Yeah. And I think with that being said, of course, I'm very biased about this, but to your point, when I look at our coaching calls that we have with clients, it's not just tactics and strategies all the time. A lot of it's mental, right?
Mhm.
I think a lot of people think the investment's got to create some kind of immediate return, like an immediate win. That's why a lot of people will pay for cold calling services, right? With a coach or a mentor, it's more mental and accountability than anything. And you're absolutely right. At a minimum, if you can't afford a coach right now, go find an accountability partner, a peer of
Yep.
yours that you can connect with once a week, even if it's for 15 minutes, and keep each other accountable. I still have accountability partners from 2 years ago where even if we can't meet, we leave each other a voice message.
Yep.
You got to have somebody who's holding your butt accountable. It cannot be yourself. That's so well said. All right. Pillar number 9. I know we've been talking about how to turn those into modules. Run your business as if you're bigger than you are. You talked a little bit about that in the naming of your agency, but talk to us about what do you mean run your business as if you're bigger than you are?
Well, it kind of goes back to those first 3 pillars. So if you think about it, you want to do everything as if you already have 10 or 20 employees, right? Create a process for everything that you do, write it down, have it documented, have an employee manual before you hire your first employee. Make sure that you're doing everything with an eye for growth because you always want to hire your next employee right before you need them. So you're always going to make that leap a little bit before you're ready, but you have a process. You say, okay, well, here's how we do everything. You can find the process here. Here's a video of how we do it here. Document, 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 and always treat your agency or your business or whatever it is as if you are at least 10 times bigger than you are right now.
Another way of saying that is always plan for where you're going,
Yep.
not where you've been or where you are.
Correct.
I love that you said that because I think, again, a lot of people, I see it right now with agencies, they being the owner are holding themselves back because they're unwilling to get another person or unwilling to delegate. They still think they need to be doing everything, and that's the exact reason they're capped.
Yeah.
All right, last pillar, my favorite, marketing, marketing, marketing. What do I have to do with marketing, Nancy, to win today?
You have to be out there. You have to be doing it consistently. People hear marketing and they think, oh, that's going to cost a lot of money. Well, in the old days, when I started, it did cost a lot of money because we had to advertise in phone books and in newspapers. Well, now we have access to social media and it doesn't cost us a dime. Now, yes, we might invest in some tools to make our marketing message a little bit better, but there's a few things that you need to keep in mind. You need to know who your audience is and you need to speak to that audience. As you often point out, Andy, we're not speaking to our friends. We're speaking to the people that we want to reach. So we need to let them know about us. We need to let them know what we believe in because that's what they're going to resonate with. And the other thing I can say about marketing is be consistent. It doesn't matter if you choose to market 1 time a week or 5 times a week, whatever you choose as a cadence that's comfortable for you, honor it. Put it on your calendar. I should have a whole module around calendar blocking as well, but your calendar is your gospel. Whatever's on your calendar, you're doing it. So if you have marketing on your calendar for a half an hour on a Wednesday morning, do it and be very clear about it.
You bring up a really good point about time management. We're not going to go into it, but like if you just plan effectively and then just do what your calendar tells you to do, you'd be a lot more successful.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at a lot of people who do put stuff on the calendar, but then never follow it. It's like if you're making your life actually too hard. If you would just do what your calendar is telling you to do, you'd have a lot more success. And with marketing, your point's well made. You know, people can't see what they can't buy what they can't see these days. And the secret sauce to marketing is not the home run pitches; it's consistency. If you're just out there enough, you will become the go-to resource for your prospects. It's that simple.
And when you're marketing, it's not about telling people how smart you are. It's about communicating to them in a way that they can understand it.
Yep.
And that is one of the key pieces is to make sure that you're putting your message out there in a way that will reach your target audience.
Well, let's wrap this up with this because this is what I love what you've done with this talk. Because if you think about these 10 pillars, and I'm going to go back through them quickly, Nancy, is the first 3, know your why, pick a name and make it meaningful, and are you starting from scratch or transitioning your book? That's all about your mission.
Yep.
Right. That phase is all about your mission. The next 3 modules, which are the structures, systems, and partners, buy the right amount and the right type of insurance and pay yourself last. Call it mechanics. And then you've got the be realistic, be ready to pivot, align yourself with a coach or mentor, run your business as if you're bigger than you are. That's all mental. That's mindset. And then the last one is marketing. So if you really think about starting an agency, it comes down to 4 things: mission, mechanics, mindset, and marketing. And so I'd love for you to talk about, because you've been around doing this for 28 years, and there's a lot of insurance advisors, again, either going out on their own, they've been out on their own for a couple of years, or an agency that's looking to revamp, but they're like, man, we got to start over since everything changed with the pandemic, and we have not adapted or adjusted. Talk to us about what you're doing to help the industry improve the operations of today's insurance agency.
Well, so glad you asked, Andy. It kind of came about as a result of my talk at UPowered, and also as a result of being on numerous podcasts. I've had people reach out to me and say, "Do you do coaching?" And I was like, I suppose I could. So I am working with my first client right now, who is starting his own agency, and we're going through these steps one by one, and really putting the practical pieces together, making sure that nothing is missed in the process, and really giving, I'm kind of like a living, breathing owner's manual to starting your own agency, and the things that you need to do, because I've made so many mistakes over the years. 28 years worth. I've also done a lot of things right, and I know what works. And I would say that if there's one skill set that I really have, it's about how to effectively run an agency, and the processes and pieces and motivation and mindset and discipline that goes into doing that. So I am now officially running my own coaching course on either how to start an agency or how to improve an existing agency.
Awesome. That's an area of need. I look at even what we do as a business at Complete Game. We spend a lot of our time on marketing and sales, and don't spend enough time on operations. And you're bringing a gift to those folks, because a lot of them need the help on the back end. Even if they're doing marketing well, business is going out the back end because they don't have the right operations in place. So I love that. So let me ask the obvious question. I'm an agency owner or a new advisor who wants to start my own, and I hear this and I'm saying, how do I get a hold of you, Nancy? What are the easiest ways to do this?
Easiest, of course, always is to send me a message through LinkedIn. You can also reach me at my direct email, which is nancy@olympiccrest.com. Full disclosure, I have started a new company to keep the revenue separate, but I'm still working on some of those details. So we'll just make it easy, and you can email me at nancy@olympiccrest.com.
And I'll make it easier. It is right here, right
Perfect.
below us, but you're watching this on LinkedIn anyways. So go click on Nancy's profile, send her a DM, and get on her calendar right now. Well, Nancy, I want to thank you. This was awesome. Like I said, when you told me about the talk you gave at UPowered about so you want to start an agency, I knew it was something that had to be talked about, because a lot of people, like I said, even existing agencies know that their operations could be more effective than it is today. So thank you for taking the time to do that.
Thank you for having me.
And for everybody else listening in, you know what happens when you have clarity and you have confidence? You feel unstoppable. And that's what this is about. We're here to help you create an unstoppable business model. So be good. Go do great things.